Today is June 23rd, 2019. In this video, we're going to take a look at the market, the S&P 500, the gold market, also the oil, and along with a couple of the ETF, the semiconductor and the financial ETF. Then at the end of the video, we'll have a little bit of a bonus video on the Emini S&P 500 on the ES. Looking at this weekly S&P 500 chart here, as you can see on the previous video, we're talking about this NR7, this weekly NR7, and was expecting some sort of a range expansion this week, either on the downside or on the upside. But as it turned out, with the FOMC meeting, with the dovish stand on interest rate, the market decided to move up and put in a new high for the S&P 500. And looking at the broader market indexes, the Dow Jones Industrial gained 2.36% for the week, and the Nasdaq 100 gained 3.34% for the week. For the E-mini futures, the ES, the S&P 500 gained 1.94%, and the Nasdaq NQ gained 3.29%. And a closer look at the price action on the S&P 500 on the daily chart here, you can see on Thursday actually closed at a new all-time closing high at 2954.18, which is 5 cents above the previous all-time high at 2954.13. Then on Friday, it actually made a new all-time high intraday at 2964.15, but it printed a sort of a shooting star after a hangman type of candle on Thursday. So basically looking at this little bit of a bearish price pattern, and be prepared to see some sort of a pullback next week, and in the near term coming back down to the 29.98 and possibly come down and fill this gap, and also maybe even come down and retest the 2860.31 zone. Then for the Nasdaq 100, the Nasdaq 100 also printed a hangman doji or hangman candle on Thursday, and then a little bit of a shooting star. So again, we're basically looking for a modest pullback to 76.72 next week, and possibly come down to the 75.05. It did not get up to the all-time high, which is stand at 7851.97. And for the Russell 2000, we basically was looking at this bearish candle pair here last week, and was essentially looking for a possibility of pulling back to the 1505 if it did pull back. But if it doesn't, then we're basically looking for another push up to the 1554, which it did on this last week's price action. But also, if we take a look here, and also pointed a little bit of a evening star type of price pattern, and dip back below the 1554. So in the coming week, if the market pulls back, we expect the Nasdaq, the Russell 2000 also pull back to the 1505 area. And for the oil market, we did expect a little bit of a pullback to the 50.53, but with the tension in the Middle East, it's kind of push it back up above the 55.46, and it looks like it could even get back above the 50x16, and if it does, it might even come up and fill this gap up near the $60 bill level if the tension between Iran and United States continue to escalate. Otherwise, looking at this little bit of a spinning top type of candle, we could see a little bit of a pullback, and if it does, then we'd be watching for the 55.46 and this particular gap here. Then for the gold broken out on a 5-year level. And here we last week we basically were saying that if it pulled back here to the 1525, we'd be looking for long trade location down here at this level, and then for another push back up above the 1364. You can see that we got this tremendous gap here after the dovish stand from the Fed. This on Thursday, and right now we got a lot of these FOMO chasing the go up because it broke about the 1400 level. So wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a pullback next week to in the near term to 1380, and possibly partially fill this gap here and get down to the 1364. Then we basically maybe keep an eye on some possible long trade location near these, this level here, 1364. And if we take a bigger picture look at gold, you can see this monthly chart here. We got this big swing here, and it came up to this 38.2, 1377. It actually broke through it last week. And right now, we're essentially looking for this thing to make its way up to maybe possibly to the 1479, the 50% retracement level. And in addition to that, we also have this swing here on the Fibonacci retracement. And if this thing breaks, we'll also be looking at the 127, 127 extension, the 1463 area here. And if we take a look, closer look on the weekly chart, in addition to that, I also have a, you could see that there could be a little bit of a bull flag here, right? And if this move up, then probably we'll get a major move up at somewhere around the 1450. So we got this confluence between this 50% retracement and also this 127 extension and a 161.8 extension, and that will give us a zone here somewhere around between maybe 1480 and 1450 would be the price zone to keep an eye on if gold continue to push up. And looking at the semiconductor ETF, SMH, we're also expecting it to pull back to the 99.3, but it did get a nice bounce with the market, and right now it's sitting up at the 50% level. So I do expect it to come back down to the 105 and break below it and retest this 99. And if it break through this 99, 97 area, then I'll be looking at it to retrace back down to the 88.98 area or the 141. Then for the financial ETF, XLF, you can see that it was trying to get above this 2752, but without the help of the Fed with the dovish interest rate, and the financial basically, or at least the banking stock, looking weaker right now. Basically looking for this thing to dip below, dip below this this level here. Okay, and looking for this thing to retrace back down to the bottom of this range at 2508. Looking at the weekly Emini S&P 500 futures, you can see that it is still holding up above this long-term trend line. And if we zoom in on this weekly here, a little week before that, we were talking about this NR7, and we essentially was waiting for a range expansion. And neither do we know is it going to expand downward or is it going to expand upward. But with the FOMC meeting concluded and the Fed basically indicating a dovish stand on interest rate, and the market is betting on at least a couple rate cut before the end of 2019, and also pricing in a rate cut in the next meeting, which it will be in July. So the market went and to a new high. Looking at the daily chart on the ES, we see that on Thursday, the day after the FOMC meeting, it printed a hangman doji. Then on quad witching Friday, it printed a shooting star. So right now it's basically sitting right near the little bit of a support zone here. And on this yearly composite profile, you see that here we have the value area high, and then we have also the point of control. And basically, I'm kind of looking for the price to pull back next week to below, back into this composite range and eventually come down to this 2890 area. We do have a gap here that need to be filled. And a lot of people probably eyeing the round number 2900. And also I have a Fibonacci extension from this for the swing here, and you can see that there is the 618 to 382 retracement zone. So wouldn't be surprised to see it come dip in to the zone and then bounce around, see what it before it maybe resume on an upward trend, or break through the zone and then resume down to the next low. But in addition to that, I also have this swing here, Fibonacci retracement on this swing, and you can see that there is this retracement zone, and the price almost came down to the 618, but it did not before it got this bounce. So wouldn't be surprised to see it come back dip into this zone as well if it break this particular zone here and come down to the 2736.50 or below. And looking at the hourly chart here, you can see that the hourly chart got this trend line is still pretty much respecting this trend line, and it is holding above it. We'll take a look, closer look at this price action here. As you can see on this hourly chart, last week we saw this huge shooting star candle here, and then a little bit of a inside coil, got a little bit of a false breakout, then it broke down. Right now it's sitting right near at this support zone here near the 2948 and just barely above this trend line. So in the coming week, I expect to see this zone get tested and possibly break down below this zone and come down to this next zone at 2915.50 for the short term. Then eventually I'm looking at this high volume node here get tested somewhere around this 2887 area. So basically what I'm looking at is a little bit of a price action breaking down, test here, chop, and then come down to this zone here for the short term. If you like the content in this video, click the thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber on my YouTube channel, click the subscribe button and the notification icon to avoid missing any future video. Good luck and thank you for watching.